somewhat contentious yet sometime emotional press conference wrapping up there with Texas DPS Director Steve McCraw. He was answering questions and owning criticism of the police response to that deadly school shooting there in Uvalde, Texas. Now, a couple of key things that we must point out from that news conference. First is that Director McCraw admitted that, in quote, hindsight, the situation would have been handled differently. He did say that the on-the-scene commander at the time of the shooting believed that the gunman had barricaded himself in that classroom and that at that time, no children were at risk. We want to get you live right now to Newsy national correspondent Haley Bull. She's been on the ground for us in Uvalde, Texas, and she has more on this. So, Haley, we were just listening in to that press conference with you. Obviously, you are our eyes and ears on the ground there. And at moments, we really couldn't hear what some of the questions were that were being asked. So give us some of the detail and what your biggest takeaways were from this news conference.
Yeah, good afternoon, Veronica. Well, there were a lot of questions about the timeline here and why police waited to breach the door. There were a lot of tough details revealed, quite a bit more specificity in how this unfolded, but also more deepened questions in the response. I think a very significant statement from the director was on the officer's decision to not breach the classroom door. The director flat out said that was not the right decision, and that's been a large question. Why did they wait? Now, the director said that the incident commander believed it had transitioned from an active shooter to a barricaded subject and was convinced of that. He says the decision was made that there was more time, including for them to get keys from a janitor's room to unlock 2 classroom doors. The commander, the director says, thought they needed more for a tactical breach. And the director said, obviously, children were at risk, and it was, in fact, an active shooter situation. We learned a little bit more about the 911 calls as well. We know those came in from 2 rooms, according to the director. The director gave some more details about what was said over those calls, saying one girl called from the room, and in a subsequent call said that there were people dead, multiple people dead, and 8 to 9 alive at that time. In another classroom, they received another call. The person hung up when a student told them to. The director said in the series of 911 calls, shots could be heard over the audio. At least 2 students called. Now, walking through the timeline, he gave a little bit more specificity into this, going by minute with what they know now. And it was just before 11:30. He says a teacher propped open the door. And that was a question investigators earlier this week said they believed that the school was not locked where the gunman had entered. So he says the teacher propped open the door. It's within a minute the gunman crashes. The teacher runs to get her phone. It's a few minutes later that he was able to enter the school and start shooting. The director says they believe more than 100 rounds at that time based on audio evidence. It's about 2 minutes after that the first police officers entered. He also said patrol had gone to a funeral home after the gunman had fired at 2 witnesses from there and who ran back over to the funeral home nearby. Now, it was 12:15 when tactical members arrived, again reiterating that the director says the incident commander believed that this had become a barricaded subject situation. It's still an hour after the gunman entered the school that he was killed. Another significant point here, we had heard initially from investigators that a district officer had initially confronted the gunman. In the subsequent interviews, the director says they have learned a resource officer was not on campus. He heard a 911 call, sped back, turns out to the wrong person driving by the gunman in the process. Now, there has also been a look at what forewarning there could have been leading up to this, and a big part of that includes a digital media footprint. He did clarify that initial comments the director had made, that there were a series of Facebook posts he had said initially, warning of the gunman shooting his grandmother, and then mentioning the school were actually through private message. But there was more revealed in the year leading up to this. The director says the gunman had asked his sister to help buy a gun back in September 2021. She refused. There was a social media chat where he discussed being a school shooter. in February 2022. The next month, he talked about buying a gun in another chat. He said he had just bought something in a subsequent message. And he posted a question. Someone asked him a question, are you going to shoot up the school? The suspect said, no, stop asking dumb questions, and you will see. Investigators say that this is a very large-scale investigation at this point. There are over hundreds of interviews conducted. They say thousands of leads still to be pursued. But Veronica, here a lot of the questions are centering around that response and that timeline of while those children were inside the classroom, while there were shots going on, those series of 911 calls, that decision-making process to not go into the room. So certainly we expect to hear more details about that. But those questions still remain at this point. And of course, does not change that 19 children and 2 teachers were killed in this shooting. Veronica?
All right, national correspondent Haley Bull in Uvalde, Texas. Haley, we appreciate you with all those details. We'll check back with you. Thank you.